Ethiopian and Eritrean forces have taken control of the city of Shire in northwestern Tigray. This follows intense fighting between government forces and the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. Both the African Union and United Nations have called for an immediate and unconditional truce. Let's speak about the situation with Maebel Gebremedhin from the Tigray Action Committee. Tigray Action Committee, I beg your pardon. A very good afternoon to you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. What do the developments of the last, 24 to 48 hours mean for the broader conflict and the safety, especially, of civilians in Tigray?
It means that Tigrayans are going to be dying en masse. They've already started to die. In fact, a report came out just yesterday, an article, I think it was Reuters or BBC, stating that hyenas were already eating dead bodies in the Shire area. And so not only does it mean that people are dying, it also means that Tigrayans are fleeing. Shire has a very, very large population of internally displaced people, IDPs. And so these are people who were already in a very, very bad situation as it was. They were forced to leave their homes, went to one camp, then forced to leave that camp, and then ended up in Shire because Shire had the ability to assist them for a little while. Where they were now, before Eritrea came into Shire, Ethiopia came into Shire, they were on the verge of starvation due to the humanitarian blockade that Ethiopia had Tigray in. And so they were already struggling and having a very hard time. And now they're being massacred, eaten by hyenas, and fleeing for their lives. So it's a very, very hard time right now in Tigray.
And where can people go? Where can they flee in order to find safety or to even, as you're saying, find basics such as food and water?
Well, that's the issue. Tigray has been under siege since June 21st, 2021. And so when people are fleeing, they're not able to actually leave the Tigray region. Instead, they're just fleeing to other areas of Tigray. A lot of people are going to the capital city of Tigray, which is Maebel, thinking that might be the safest place. But I'm not sure that it is. Where is safe? In the midst of the side, where is it safe while you're under siege? So they're literally just running back and forth into anywhere that they can, hiding wherever they can. And
when they arrive wherever they can, what sort of resources meet them there, I wonder, because one of the issues has been the blockade on the movement of aid. For instance, aid groups have said it's impossible or near impossible to get food supplies and others, or medicine, for instance, into these areas.
Correct. So they're going to these places that have very, very little to offer them other than possible shelter. In fact, yesterday, the Ethiopian government released a statement, a press statement stating that because Shire Airport had been taken over, they were going to finally allow aid to come in, that they were going to come in with aid, essentially stating that they were the ones that were blocking the aid. They were the ones that were not allowing food or medical aid to come in at all. And so the Ethiopian government has officially come out and said that they are the ones that have blocked the aid for this long. And now that they have taken over an airport, they're willing to actually provide aid for its own citizens. Tigrayans are Ethiopians. They're Ethiopian citizens. And the Ethiopian government is the one that has been doing this to them. So it's their own government that's been starving them, raping them, killing them.
Because the government has also pointed the finger of blame for some of the horrors suffered by civilians at the TPLF. Are the government and TPLF both to blame for the protracted suffering of innocent people there?
Well, Tigrayans are Ethiopians at the end of the day. They're Ethiopian citizens. And so if anything is being done upon them, their federal government is the one that's supposed to protect them first. They're the ones that are supposed to provide the basic necessities, rather. Instead, what the Prime Minister's Abiy Ahmed and his government have done is invite Eritrea, which is a neighboring country, to come in and rape, pillage, starve its own citizens. It has allowed Ethiopian Federal Army and soldiers to come in and just go crazy, do whatever it is that they want. So I understand that Ethiopia's federal government would like to blame the government of Tigray, the regional government of Tigray, but it's very hard to do that when the government itself is what is supposed to be taking care. The Ethiopian government, the federal government, is the entity that's supposed to be taking care of its own citizens. And so that's where my blame lies.
Am I right to say, though, Maebel, that it is near impossible to get to the bottom of who is responsible, accountability and justice, until there's been an independent investigation that explores fully the actions of both the federal government in Addis and indeed the TPLF forces?
Agreed. The Ethiopian government has stopped the investigation, an independent investigation. They've also stopped any journalists from coming in and out of Tigray. So when you're hearing of stories that are coming out of Tigray, it's either early on it was due to the flee of Tigrayans that were able to get out. Originally, in November 2020, 70,000 Tigrayans were able to get out and flee to Sudan, neighboring Sudan. But because they came with their stories and their experiences, the Ethiopian government closed that border. And so anytime a story comes out of Tigray, it's due to someone possibly getting some internet service from an NGO, from a satellite service, or escaping Tigray, which has become almost near impossible. And so there have been no independent investigations. There have been very, very little articles that have come out because Ethiopia's government is not allowing it.
How reliable, then, I wonder, is the information that many organizations, including yours, are working with in trying to highlight what's going on there?
Well, I would say immensely reliable because the stories that we're getting are literally from the ground. Tigray Action Committee has, we are an NGO essentially. We are able to get aid in through the black market system because it's the only way that you can do it at the moment. WHO is the biggest aid provider for Ethiopia and specifically Tigray, and they have not been able to get their aid through because they're working with the Ethiopian government, doing their best, going through the red tape, as it were, but they're having a very hard time. Whereas smaller grassroots organizations like ours is able to get around that because of a black market system that's been essentially figured out. And so our sources are very reliable because they're the ones that are on the ground. And again, we are speaking to people who are able to get through because of satellite. We're able to get through because of NGOs that are on the ground and have satellite Wi-Fi. Otherwise, really no other way.
The United Nations has this week again reiterated the call for unconditional peace talks to start to happen. There was supposed to be a meeting between the two sides in South Africa, in fact, this month, but that did not happen. Are you hopeful that a meeting between the TPLF and the federal government will, A, happen, and B, when it does, be able to put an end to the violence?
I am desperate for that to happen. I would love for that to happen. Wars are maybe the worst things that can happen on Earth. They allow for the worst things to actually happen on Earth. This genocide has happened to children. It's happening to women. It's happening on the bodies of women. It's really horrible. People are starving to death in the year of 2022. There's so much food in the world. There's so much resources and accessibility, but people are dying from starvation today. And so I would love for that to happen immediately. I call on it to happen immediately. South Africa is a wonderful country, and why not there, And so I really, really do hope that it does happen, and that is the end of all of this. But the delays and the logistical issues and the talks back and forth is just not acceptable. It's rather embarrassing, honestly. The African Union is meant to save African lives, and allowing logistical issues to stop something that can save millions of African lives is atrocious.
Maebel, Gebremedhin, good to have your time, ma'am. Thank you for speaking to us from the Tigray Action Committee.